What's up everyone, MK Tom Brady here. So in this video, I do kind of want to talk to NRS directly in some ways. And I also want to address the elephant in the room of all the criticism and quote unquote non-stop hate and negativity directed toward Mortal Kombat and NRS. And I'll try to be brief on this, I want to weigh in on me being labeled as, I think the quote was, the face of Mortal Kombat hate, the biggest hater of Mortal Kombat and NRS, and that it really bothered them because they actually liked me over there, and that I've been someone who has been, I forget again, bitching about Mortal Kombat for 11 or 15 years, whatever it is. And I really wanted to weigh in on this. Mortal Kombat 11 is a game in which I was definitely seen as one of the guys who went in the hardest. Yet, when I actually look at the truth of this negative, hater and bitching and moaning, I'm seeing guides about hit confirming Scorpion's forward 3 to help players who thought he had no mid or couldn't get the hit confirm off of the forward 3 properly. Dealing with Jade's annoying stuff when they gave us Avalanche tutorial on how to play Sub-Zero 101 with Avalanche. When Upgraded Jackie first came out, a tutorial on how to deal with some of her stuff, some options you guys might have. When Aftermath came out, it was right in the start of COVID. A lot of people got laid off then. It was a tough time for a lot of people. Well, when it came to Ultimate, is it worth the price? I did a video in which I said it was. More stuff on Combat Pack 2 that I covered. I covered stuff on Reigns Combat Cast, broke his trailer down, broke down the new wake-up system as soon as we saw that something might have changed, what it could have been, and then what it was when they confirmed it. And a whole list of videos to help newer players who were new to fighting games. And I related it directly to Mortal Kombat so they could learn like how to deal with hit advantage, block advantage, recovery frames, active frames, startup frames. For people that bought a PS5 and wanted to know how to transfer their files from MK11 to PS4 to PS5, I did a tutorial on that. More stuff on Rambo. Look, Melina, awesome. Like, look at all this. None of this stuff is negative. And, I did more like breakdown stuff of her trailer, talked my reaction more toward custom variations, how ecstatic I was about that. A video where people were talking about breaker or breakaway, which is better. I did a video weighing the pros and cons of both. I started to do custom build guides because I'll link the link to this in the description. An article came out at the beginning of MK11's life in which they interviewed certain developers. And when they got to like what happens if you're going to do customs or are you going to be able to change the variations, the quote was that the end goal was to plan to balance custom abilities when necessary with specific variations in mind. They could change variations themselves. Depending on feedback from us, the community, they could swap moves in and out. They could make certain moves take up to 2 slots instead of 1 and more. Or I guess the vice versa, make moves that were 2 that should be 1, take 1 slot, things like that. So when they announced custom variations, I was really excited that we were going to get these changes that we were promised at the beginning of the game's life. I just thought, hey, COVID delayed everything. I was really excited for this. So I did a bunch of build guides based on what I thought could change, etc. Sub-Zero custom build guide, ground puddle and creeping ice. If you ever go back and watch that video, look at how excited I am. And of course, they ended up banning that, so that wasn't possible. I did a Melina beginner's guide, a Rain beginner's guide. I know somewhere in there I have a Rambo beginner's guide. Sub-Zero Rising Ice combo guide. Look at this. Sub-Zero is awesome in Mortal Kombat 11. I mean, this is not what people associate with me. Like, I'm supposed to be the guy who's bitching, moaning, crying and complaining, and now you guys see the truth that that's not really the case. I did a lot of tech videos, things like that. I know there's the ice clone is not functioning properly, but basically that was a short video to the point, me talking about a bug involving EX clone not functioning right, and it was remixed into a heavy metal video to make it seem like I was bitching, crying, and complaining. It's just the narrative that people have always tried to portray, even when it was never true. Now, this is MK11. I was showing you a game I was very critical about in the end of the game's life. And again, we just saw nothing but tech videos and things like that. I did weigh in my opinion on MK1, on MK11 at the end when I was very disappointed. And I did criticize NRS heavily and the game heavily, but then I stopped for maybe a year straight, a year and a half. And then MK1 came out and I was back to making videos about armored launchers, how they work, who has them, etc. During the beta combos, my first impressions that were good, breaking down the mechanics of the game, things like that. None of these things are negative. These are things I like to do. And we have a lot of content creators like this NRS. Now I know you've had games like MK9 and MKX, games that have had tons of issues, and we didn't harp on them. So why are we harping on them now? Well, because in those games, there was so much to talk about, gameplay related wise, that we didn't harp on them. We would talk about a thing like a bug or something, and we would leave it alone because there's so many matchups and what the characters could do and certain situational stuff. And as the game grew, there were more and more stuff became known, more ways to do things became known. There was a lot to talk about just involving the game and how to play it. So there's no reason to harp on this kind of stuff. Now in MK1, the problem really is because it's kind of so watered down and very, very dry. We can't talk about tech and we can't talk about matchups because the game isn't really built that way. It's a straight line. Most of the stuff was known about these characters within the first 2 weeks of the game, and it really hasn't changed much. And sure, you've changed some cameos around, and by changing them, I mean nerfing them, but all people do is go to the next cameo that still allows them to play the way they did the very first day of the game. And it just seems like you don't seem to understand that this is not so much negativity as much as it is criticism. Content creators like myself, what are we supposed to cover? We cover your game. We can't talk about matchups. That doesn't exist. We can't talk about tech. We can't talk about new finds. None of that. None of that. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how it took you 45 days to fix the DC issue. We're covering your game, right? So all we have to cover is the bad stuff. We're going to talk about how, hey, there was a bug in which you could move beginning of the in between rounds and combo people, and it was never fixed until it happened to somebody in tournament. And then you did a combat cast in which you said you fixed it, and it happened again in tournament. And then you did another patch in which you said you fixed it, and of course you finally did. How you did a crossplay, but all those people on PC and Xbox who've been waiting to finally play in these tournament leagues are going to have to wait even longer, because you didn't give them the ability to do that in crossplay. You left that function out. Just all these things. What else are we going to cover? You did a combat cast in which you said, Melina, it's her season. And what really happened, and then you said there were Flesh Pits hybrids, punk rock Flesh Pits hybrids. And when we find out what really happened is player interest was down. So you took a fan favorite character like Melina, you made her a Titan boss, and just kept the original season skins and everything. Only it told us that the art team worked really hard on Melina stuff and really nailed it, and we found out what really happened. When you do things like this, normally this would not be a big deal at all. They only become a big deal because there's nothing for us to discuss within the game. So all we can do is cover things like that, and what are the online tournament numbers, and what are the offline tournament numbers, and what is the player count, because you're not giving us anything to cover. Content creators myself, I don't want to cover what's the best and worst version of this move or that move of this character in NRS history. There's a new game out where in month 6, we should be able to put all these tech videos out and things like that and get people into the game. But you don't give us that ability. You don't give me that ability. And content creators like me that all we want to do is cover the game and how to play it. Because we already know how to play it. Full screen move, call assist, and standard projectiles in the neutral, quote unquote, and then do unsafe move, call assist up close, things like that. That's pretty much every single character in the entire game. Poke, 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 strike, throw. That's it. The bare basics. You don't have to, I mean, Sikander just did a video as he loves this game because you can punish a down one. That's how simple the game is. That's how simplistic the game is. That something that small is like, it has to stay because of the button mashing and whatever. I mean, really, down one should not be that much. Down one is not even as important in Virtua Fighter as it is in MK for some reason. And everyone knows how important low jabs are in VF, if you played it, by the way. I mean, obviously, if you didn't, you have no idea. But the point that I'm trying to make is you're not giving us anything to cover. So if we're going to cover Mortal Kombat, you're only giving us things that aren't very good to cover. And that's really the problem here, or seems to be the root of the matter here. When it comes to the community, apparently, if you really want to know where to direct your criticism, the reason why the netcode is bad and why, certain things are the Wi-Fi filter or their filter wasn't very good or anything to the online, there's two different teams. You have your netcode guys or things dealing with some of those features, getting them functionally into the game. Then you have your actual gameplay developers who what the characters do and don't do and how good they are, etc. They're two different departments. Apparently, NRS is not Warner Brothers is not willing to pony up the cash to really get a very good netcode department right now. And they are not willing to, this is just all rumor and innuendo, but this is kind of what the word on the street is, that they're very shorthanded there. And these, the quality and quantity needed to really make these things possible in a timely manner just isn't there right now. And that's on Warner Brothers, who just doesn't want to put up the money to do it. So we understand that. And going forward, I mean, look, NRS, the thing is, if you say something like, we're going to have this fixed here and it's not, or this is going to be implemented and it's not implemented right, we don't know these kind of things that you're dealing with. So when you say this is going to be done and it's not, we only know to come after you. But just letting the community know these are Warner Brothers issues. Now, the issue with you, NRS, you are not off the hook here. Because at the end of the day, if you were to just power up your game and give us more possibilities and more ways to play and have the characters be less linear, less of a straight line, the content would not be about all the bad things about the game. It would be about all the good things about the game and the tech and how to play it and things like that. And while the online tournaments, they would be kind of a joke because the netcode is awful, the offline tournaments would blossom and would be huge. And our scene would be able to grow again. And we would get a massive offline tournament scene that we could build off of going forward. And look, you also have to keep in mind that, your kind of philosophy of rebuilding everything from the ground up is part of the reason here. You get to a point where you're going to try to change things or do too much, and you just don't have the time to do that. And we're still not going to kill you about it here, but give us something to cover that's not negative. Give us something to cover that's not bad, I guess. And I don't mean to say that word, but I don't know how else to say it. So at the end of the day, that's just kind of how I feel about this. And I'm not sure how you guys at home feel, but NRS, just give us something that's not bad news for once. Give us something to report on or talk about or break down that's really cool, so we can break down the game again and make it about Mortal Kombat and playing the game and less about everything else. But that's just my 2 cents. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, stay tuned for more content. Thanks for watching.